Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode. We are going to discuss ghosts and the paranormal. But I don't want it to be like every other ghost and paranormal show because of the fact that I know it the way that I know it as a psychic medium. So I'm going to give you a twist on how I perceive ghosts, spirit, and paranormal activity. So I've kind of delved back into my past of when I was a child growing up that I had a lot of activity when I was trying to sleep in my room. I felt like there were definitely things surrounding me. I was always scared. I never slept. And then I've had on the other spectrum of I've had very elated dreams where I would be up and enjoyed just being up in the middle of the night and having these fun, like apparition kind of things. I had one time my mom, the poor thing, she was so tired with raising four kids and I never slept. And so I remember kneeling at the side of my bed with a nightlight dimly lighting the room, and my sister was asleep across from me. And I remember just staring at my comforter, and my comforter came alive. Now, yes, there might be some like scientific backing of this, of your eyes are tired and, the dim lighting, and you kind of make this up of the whole imagery. But I'll tell you what I saw, and I believed and like loved it. It was the most amazing, magical thing to me. Is as I was staring at my comforter, my whole comforter came to life. And it was this whole scene of dinosaurs and crossing these bridges, and they were like eating and walking and communicating. It was just so magical. And I remember going and waking up my mom, and she came in so tired because I had to wake her to show her, thinking this was like the most magical thing ever. And I think she thought I was scared or upset in some way. And so she said, "There's nothing there." And she took her hand and smashed the entire dinosaur scene on the bed because that was her way of helping me. And unfortunately, it made me upset. And then I went to bed. So I guess she got her way with me going to bed that day. But I definitely had a hard time sleeping all the time. But I remember those dinosaurs distinctly. Like still to this day, I can see my comforter and what it looked like. And it was just really like this amazing scene. So what does that have to do with ghosts and paranormal? I think we were talking about how we can have positive experiences that are influenced through spirit. Because I definitely think spirit was playing and interacting with me in a positive, a fun way that I enjoyed as a child. And I didn't know that at the time. The dark energies that I've had, I used to think that I had to jump from my door frame to my bed. I could not touch the floor. For some reason, the floor always scared me, always bothered me underneath my bed. And just the entire room just felt off. I didn't enjoy it. I was not comfortable in there. And I always pictured these small, like I said, I don't believe in demons, but there were these small creatures that were shorter than my bed that really scared me. They pretty much looked like little devils, little demon kind of things. And I don't remember physically seeing them. I felt like I was clairvoyantly seeing them and sensed that they were around. And needless to say, I slept with my parents often because of that. And now as a grown adult, I remember having this conversation with my parents and telling them, oh, I remember I just, I felt like I had to jump from the door to the bed And my mom had explained that she could sense and feel that there was a dark energy in my room. And she took ownership and cleansed the space by just claiming it and asking the entity to leave, like in an aggressive way, not politely, and saying it had to leave. And she said my sleeping and everything kind of cleared up after that. And I don't remember, she never explained to me that she did that. But I think with her having the knowledge in spirituality and feeling comfortable with that, she felt like that was something that needed to happen. And I'm grateful that she did, because I think I was finally able to get some sleep. So, ghosts and paranormal. So, there is residual energy that can stay in a space that can be considered a haunting. So, this can be the residual energy is going to be associated with some kind of event that took place, either a tragedy or, like I said, we're talking about paranormal. So, we'll talk all of the paranormal events that can cause this residual energy to stay. So, something like a murder, or, somebody fell to their death, or things like that, that it's not actually the soul that's staying behind, but it's more the physicality of the event. And it almost forms its own entity. So, like I said, I don't believe in hell. I don't believe in demons, but I do believe in lower vibrational beings. And this is kind of that thing, that this is like its own energy, and it forms from this tragedy, and it like builds and builds and snowballs into a bigger thing. And that's how it manifests itself in today's reality. When you're in a space and say you hear somebody walking down the stairs, or if you hear a knock on the wall, or items fall off the walls or fly off the shelves, that could all be from a residual energy. It could also be a ghost, but it's in this moment, I go ahead and ask my guides. You'll hear me talking to myself, and I ask my guides. So that's what I'm doing here. But I kept this clip in because I felt like it really set the tone for what I was trying to explain. How can you tell the difference between a residual energy okay. The difference between, my guides are telling me that the difference between a residual energy of a haunting and a ghostly haunting is that a residual energy will repeat itself. That's all it will do. It will do the same thing over and over and over again. So whatever it's doing, flicking the lights, knocking something off the shelf, that's going to be consistent, and it's going to be the same time, the same spot, the same this, the same that. So that is the residual energy and how you can decipher. But if you're having activity all through the house, outside of the house, if it follows you, if it happens in your car, that's ghostly energy. And that's something that a spirit can stay in the earthly realm. It's not very common for us to stay here on the earthly plane, because when we get to the other side and we pass, there's a lot of things to attract us to the light, to God and source. But what happens is, if someone leaves this world and it's tragic or sudden or unexpected, or even just peacefully, and they can get stuck, so to say, but they also have the choice to stay if they want to. So it's all about free will. So sometimes they choose to stay because they're like, I like it here, and that's completely fine. You do you, bugaboo. So these ghosts might not all mean ill will. So I think, like, a lot of times when activity spikes up, it tends to be in the evening hours, it tends to be at night, we're all relaxing, and it can be scary. I don't think that it's all negative energy and meant to harm. but it definitely can be creepy nonetheless. Like I said, I still sleep with the nightlight, and I'll get nervous at night too, and I'll have spirit and things come to me and they freak me out. So if you have a ghost, if it's now, like I said, a lot of times it can be your ancestors, but we're talking about the paranormal and we're talking about ghosts that aren't your loved ones. You can always cleanse your space. You can use white sage to help and burn it and ask for them to go to the light, go with God. You can just do a prayer. You can have a priest come in and do a cleansing if you felt need be. The residual energy, that is something that my guides are telling me that you need to honor them. Like honor, it's almost like as if you need to gift them something, because I feel like the residual energy is not going to go with just a cleansing. It needs something to help move it. Like, I don't know, like I'm seeing this situation where a gentleman is shot while he's riding his favorite horse. And this energy has stayed there. And I feel like if there is a statue put in the honor of this incident of what happened, it actually will move the energy out, because it almost feels like it can rest. It doesn't need to be circling in this same space over and over again, doing the same thing. That putting out almost like a gift or an offering to help this energy move forward. That's interesting because I didn't know that. I'm learning as I'm connecting with my guides and asking them along the way with this podcast. So it's really interesting to find that out and get to know that, because anything of the metaphysical is not black and white. It's always in the gray zone. So it's all whatever you're comfortable with, what works for you, and specific to your situation, right? So I'm just trying to give examples and guide you along if you have questions about the ghosts and paranormal. Okay, so how I see spirit and how I communicate. See, I can't even call them ghosts. So anybody that I communicate is definitely with God. So a higher vibration being. So I always honor them by calling them spirit. I feel like if I call them ghosts, it's almost offensive, right? Like it's like this as if they're, like not of a soul. And so I always call them spirit. And how spirit presents themselves to me is pretty much just talking to me, communicating to me. I can hear them clairaudiently, which is just in my own mind's voice in my head. But it's something that I wouldn't say. So that's how you can decipher if it's spirit as opposed to your own thoughts. So thank goodness I don't have the gift of fully seeing apparitions. I have seen black figures walk in front of me, or this is prior to being a medium. I don't think I've seen anything black in a long time, but I've definitely seen like moving mist. I've seen it mostly as like white, where it's almost like this mist of smoke and it disappears. And a lot of times I'll catch it out of the corner of my eye and then it disappears when I go to turn and look at it. And I always know somebody's there with me and just protecting me, being sweet. Like I don't think of anybody negative ever being around me. But I guess I could catch myself in those places. It's just often I don't feel the pull to go to haunted places because I'm haunted enough, right? Like I have spirit around me 24/7. So why would I want to go to a space that has more activity? I am always intrigued though. I love like mysteries and you know, the history of places. So I love those kind of things. And I'm not one of those that gets overwhelmed. I can, like with the energies in places. But a lot of times when I'm not working, I'm in the off position, meaning like I'm not communicating with spirit right now. I'm not open to that. So I can sense and feel the energy of a space, but I really don't let that in. I definitely know how to protect myself very well, and I'll explain how you do that. So if you are in a space and there's too much energy around you, you need to ground your energy, which I've talked about in episode 5. You also can picture this beautiful golden white light that is a bubble surrounding you, and making sure that your beautiful energy in and nothing can penetrate that. I also take, because of the fact that I'm a medium, I picture my crown chakra as a rose, and when I'm working, it's open, bloomed, beautiful, reaching across vast universes. When I'm in the off position, it turns into a beautiful little rosebud, so it's closed off. They'll knock on my door still, spirit, but they're usually respectful and mindful of keeping the space and letting me stay in the off position. Unless if I get curious and want to ask about a space and kind of delve deeper. And I've totally done that too by using my gifts and having questions of what I feel. And actually, right before, I have a little story to tell about paranormal activity. Listen, I've got a ton. That right before being a medium, I mean, so I guess I've always been a medium, right? But before my gift actually came, and I knew I had my gift, I was out at dinner on a date with my husband, and we're sitting at this table at the bar that it was a high top table, just a 2-seater. And there was a table behind me. Nobody was sitting there. And then there was this big window to the left of me into another space, but it had like a drop down area where the tables were way lower. Nobody could really reach that window when you're sitting down at the tables below. And I was sitting there having a conversation or enjoying my drink, and I felt something on my left shoulder behind me that it felt like the side of a palm that went into my shoulder, and then it like scraped downward. Now, this didn't hurt. I'm explaining like the side of the palm, like that fatty side of your hand into your pinky, and just it felt like it pressed and then slid down my back. So I turned around saying, "Oh, excuse me," thinking somebody is going to sit down behind me, and nobody was there. And so I had asked my husband, "Was somebody just behind me? Was there somebody trying to sit there?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, I felt somebody like just touch my shoulder and touch my back." And he said, "Nobody was there." And he's like, "Maybe it was the waitress going by because they had a walkway to my right side." But I said, "No, honey, I felt this on my left." So meaning not anywhere near that anybody could touch. And so I sat there, and being into paranormal and being into history and things like that, we live in Georgia, and we sat there and I said, "Wait, I'm getting a name." And my husband's totally open to this kind of stuff. He was very sweet and supportive. And I said, I want to say I said Sherman. So it was William Sherman, the Major General of 1864 of the Union Army. He had the campaign of Sherman's March to Sea, where they called it the scorched earth policy, destroying military targets as well as industry, infrastructure, and civilian property, disrupting the Confederacy's economy and transportation networks. So that is very rich in the history here in Georgia. A lot of chimneys still stand in remembrance of that time, that era, because of how tragic it was in the devastation and clearing, pretty much starting from scratch here in Georgia, everything until he made it to Savannah, where the Confederacy was forced to surrender. So that's the background. And I got that name Sherman. And I felt like the building that I was in, actually stayed erected during that time, which is surprising because everything was demolished. So I haven't looked up the exact restaurant. I was trying to ask the owner if they've had any paranormal activity, and they said they've had some things that they've questioned, but nothing really that they would have said, oh, we definitely have, paranormal activity going on all the time here. So that's my story of being touched by ghosts in a haunted restaurant. Or maybe it would just wanted to, a lot of times I feel like they being ghosts and spirit and paranormal, they want to reach out to people who are sensitive like me, or empaths, mediums, just sensitive people in general, because we can hear them. We understand them. So they want to portray, and communicate something that they're still sitting with. So I didn't really get, being that I wasn't a medium at that time, I didn't really get and understand what the message was. I just got the name. And then I had to look it up after, of like, wait, I think that was the Sherman who, came through the Civil War and cleared everything here. And sure enough, it was. And that was a pretty exciting discovery. This is back when I lived on Cape Cod. I also had an instance where shortly after my Nana passed, I had a couple of things that happened in my house with her directly. So she wasn't a ghost or paranormal. She was, like I said, most of your loved ones come to you because of the fact that they know that you're sensitive and can hear and sense them, and they send you those things. And I remember there were two instances that I remember distinctly. And my husband, being very sensitive himself, he had a near-death experience. He was pretty much born with the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck. And with him being born in that way, that a lot of times those kind of instances can lead to more psychic activity and just a person being more sensitive and empathic in this world. So he's always had that ability, and a lot of things have followed him. And I've met his grandparents, and they were curious about me when we were first dating. I had them, kind of stand next to me as I was sleeping when we were first dating. And I remember being scared and thinking, like, go away, please leave me alone. And I remember telling my now husband that next morning, something was standing over me, and I don't know what it was. And it was kind of, bugging me. It felt like this male presence. And he was like, oh, that's my grandfather. He comes all the time. And he said, but you're the first one that he's actually shown himself to, that he's actually, that you're aware that he's around. So different things like that. Nana and my husband, Sean, had witnessed this too after her passing. This was, I think, before her wake, that the night before her wake, there was a dark figure sitting in our living room. We used to sleep with the bedroom door open. Now we sleep with all bedroom doors closed, as my husband is a firefighter now, will protect and save your life if you keep your doors closed when you're sleeping at night. Very important to know. If a fire ever breaks out, it'll save your life. Okay. That was just a little tidbit. So our door was open at that time when we used to sleep with the door open, and a dark figure was sitting on the couch. And I remember the next morning my husband had said to me, we didn't say anything about it. I just remember seeing it. My husband saw it, but we didn't talk about it at that time. And he had said to me, there was a tall man that I saw sitting on the couch last night. And I said, wait, I saw that too. I said, well, it wasn't a tall man. It was my Nana. My Nana was very tall and slender. And he said, oh, okay. And then the next night, I remember my Nana coming to the side of my bed. I could physically feel her presence. I just knew she was there. She kind of freaked me out. And then I heard her talk to me, and she said, now it wasn't externally. It was, again, in my mind's voice, so like clairaudiently. And she said, tell Grandpa I'm okay. Because she happened to pass before my grandfather did. So she wanted to relay that message. Come to find out, I go talk to my grandfather. After his grief journey, I didn't feel like it was the right time to tell him. I waited some time to give him some space because I felt like he wasn't mentally ready for that. So then when I shared that with him, he broke down and said, that's all I've been asking, if she is okay. Exactly those words. So just wanted to share those. That's my paranormal and ghostly interactions. They're usually very peaceful, but again, I get spooked with things that go bump in the night. So I always do my protections. I ground my energy. I make sure I'm safe. All my loved ones are safe. I do a lot of that to cover them in only the positive, the good, the high vibrational. So as we wrap up here, I want you all to empower yourselves that you have the ability to take stand and to own your abilities to either move a spirit out or cleanse and free your space and claim your space, because you living in the here and now, you have more power, and you have more power than you would ever know. I just want you to feel like there is hope and you have a space that you can share here. So if anybody's had your own experiences and you want to share in the comments below, I would love to hear your own experiences of things that you might have encountered. As always, I want to send you love and light. Please subscribe to follow along for each and every episode. If you would like to be a guest on my podcast, please click the link below to contact me. Sending you love and light.